Now, being skilled in multiple areas and cultivating a thirst for knowledge, that is key to becoming a modern Renaissance person. I think that this is a very interesting topic to really touch on, considering that more than likely we are in the internet renaissance, if you will. Now, my name is Dustin Miller, PolyInnovator. I welcome you to TeleInnovator, and in this case, the Omni Content, which is a series that I do when it comes to just creating content on multiple platforms. However, this is part of a mini-series called the Multidisciplinary Spectrum, which talks about people who are all different kinds of multidisciplinary people, from jack of all trades to generalist and Renaissance person like we are talking about today, as well as polymaths and more. I wanted to get into this topic a little bit more deeply in this particular episode. I'm going to change this down a little bit. And when you watch these videos or read these posts, I want you to be able to identify where you are on that spectrum from this point to this point to this point to that point to that point and so forth. And wherever you may end up being, this allows you to kind of get an idea of what kind of mentality to have, what kind of lifestyle to have, and overall live the life you want to live. And so, excelling at multiple fields in the sciences and arts, that is what it really takes to be a Renaissance person. You can't just see it as a one side kind of thing. It's all a holistic point of view, like a blossoming flower. And this whole idea of creating our lives around that topic, that is what I think is really cool. We can see it almost as an idea of the universal man or the polymath, people who do everything. And when you look at the Renaissance, whether it's the Italian one or the Arabian one for it, or even the Chinese Renaissance, there's tons of different options. And so when it comes to the idea of what the Renaissance is, the Renaissance person, that is a person that embodies certain symbols that we can talk about a little bit later and lives a life of being multidisciplinary, someone who is activating those parts of themselves and actually digging into the curiosities and fulfilling those skills at a much deeper level than, say, a jack of all trades. That doesn't necessarily mean they'll be a polymath, and there's some people who actually see them as two separate terms. And that's why I created the spectrum, because these are all different terms that mean a multidisciplinary person. So what does a Renaissance person mean? Well, being a Renaissance person is a way of improving your life. And when you think like a Renaissance person, you start to become one. And now we don't live in the Italian Renaissance of a few hundred years back, but we do live in a time where the internet's changing things, democratizing the way of life, as well as giving you access to learn is anything you want to learn. And the idea behind being able to learn everything is great. But if you don't do anything about it, then what's the point? Now, pretty much 99% of multidisciplinary people are autodidacts. They're people who are self-learners. So finding a way to cultivate the self-learning is what's really key to prosperity and success. Now, being a well-rounded person is not just enough. You have to be more than that. You have to be deeply into those kind of things. So in the Jack of all trades video, I talk about putting your hands in all the different cookie jars. And whereas a lot of people will eat just one cookie, they stay in one jar, Jack of all trades pulls a couple cookies out of each jar. A Renaissance person will have many jars that they start eating multiple out of. They've had multiple cookies out of those jars, and moreover, they've learned how to make that cookie from the bottom up and be able to fill up the jar themselves, meaning they actually contribute to the areas that they have learned, not just learn from them. And so they say that, like, Leonardo da Vinci was obviously an all-rounder. He understood almost everything of his time. In fact, he created many sciences that we know today, including ocular science and light physics. He's the one that first discovered it, but since his notebooks were hidden for so long, we didn't actually know until it was already discovered by someone else. But the whole idea is that living beyond our lives is to reach out, and that's the whole point of being a jack of all trades, is dabbling, reaching out and feeling what the world is like. Or as the Octopus Movement says, being like an octopus and having the tentacles go in every which way, feeling the way out, and the way that your mind reaches out to different parts of your life, no less. So this resonates with my 4-pillar philosophy, which I created in the same line of thinking of polymath thinking. I created the ULC for that term. Like, that's where that philosophy came into, was the ULC. And I had 4 people who were multidisciplinary. And so it's all part of that same cycle there. But here's a refresher. It's the mind, body, spirit, and emotions. That's what the 4 pillars are. The 4 pillars of your life here. boom, and then bang. There we go. 4 pillars of your life. Now, each part of those pillars are the major aspects of your existence. Now, it's kind of limited, and in the blog post linked below, there's a little chart where it's a whole person development. And I linked to the site where I found the image from. But I thought it was kind of interesting because it has emotional, spiritual, intellectual, physical, social, aesthetic, and career. And I find that to be kind of interesting when it comes to the whole dynamic of our life. It includes the social, which to me kind of the spirituality and emotion side is where the social will kind of come in. But there's other parts of it, like the physical is obviously the body pillar, intellectual is more of the mind, spiritual is a spirit pillar, and emotions are the emotions pillar. But there's career, aesthetic, and social that's added to it. And actually, something I haven't talked about is in the PolyInnovation operating system, I talk about having the Ikigai as part of the 4 pillars as well. So instead of having just 4 sections, it's 8, talking about each area of your life, and that's the career, that is the social aspect as well. Aesthetic, actually, it's not something I really thought about, and it talks about taking into all those different aspects and various aspects of your life. It's similar to what I'm talking about, but there's actually another 4 pillars philosophy, which again is linked in the blog post below, but it is music, literature, athletics, and art. And so what is music if not the flowings of emotions? What is literature? It teaches us the origin of mind. Athletics are the key to a sustainable physical form. And what is art if not passion of the soul? So each one of those 4 pillars of the Renaissance person that this article had described is the same as my 4 pillars, just taken in a different light. And I find that regardless of which system you use, which are all essentially the same, that same line of thinking of being a Renaissance person, especially in the modern era, that is what I want people to really think about. And that's what I want people to really try to incorporate and bring into their life. And so it's all about finding your place and how to become a modern Renaissance person. I almost said Renaissance polymath, but a Renaissance person. And that's the whole point of this post, because yes, it's different than polymath, it's different than jack of all trades, but it's part of that same spectrum, it's part of that same line of thinking, just at a different level. And I think even more so than some of the other terms, this has a philosophy and mindset that we can actually employ, regardless if you're a generalist or a specialist. Having that same line of thinking will make you from a specialist to a T-shaped person and an eventually multi-dimensional person. And that's the reason why I created the philosophy for it too. And it's not just about you, it's also about art and science, 2 things that people contribute to the world all around us. This video is technically a piece of art, it's a piece of content I'm sharing with you. My way of describing this idea is my own artistic expression. I've been using my hand gestures quite a lot in this video, but the ideas behind this video, that is the art behind it. Rather if it's my own or someone else's, it doesn't matter. And so that is the art. But the science is, I'm literally recording on a computer that is very advanced. It's gaming, video rigging, video editing capable. It's an advanced computer. It's a technology. I can only do this because I have the skills of the artistic side and the technical side. But it's not a duality. It is a holistic view. Thinking of it like 2 sides of the same coin. And that coin is the content. The coin is life. Our Renaissance life, if you will. And then beyond that, what does it mean to be a Renaissance person? Well, we talked about how to be one and what it means to be one in your own life, but the whole idea is that in the past, Renaissance people were usually pretty attractive. They had or either by natural beauty or by self-created beauty, such as the physique that you can carve out when you do exercise. Leonardo da Vinci was known for being able to bend iron bars with his bare hands because he was so strong. He was such a great physique. And given the cross-section of arts and sciences, it helps make you think in different ways. And that's how a lot of artistic pieces during the Renaissance were created, by looking at the science and the art together. But the Renaissance people of the modern day take those same concepts and bring it into a new light. They always say the Renaissance person was the guy or the girl who knew everything, but everything is not possibly known. That's the whole idea of being an omnimath, knowing all. And that's not possible. Being an omnimath is not physically or, temporally possible. There's not enough time in the world to consume everything, knowledge-wise. But the idea of knowing everything back in the day was more palatable because there was so little things people knew that you could theoretically know most, if not all, of all this knowledge that was out there. Granted, not everything, but all the sciences and all the arts, all the major topics and areas of knowledge could be found to a certain degree. They say that now, since we've exponentially expanded to so many more sciences, so many new ways of approaching art, content, Leonardo da Vinci couldn't ever think about having a video, for example. It's a piece of art that was just not conceptual back then. And who knows what the next 10 years are going to bring for us, too. But being able to know everything isn't necessarily about knowing every single skill, every single knowledge area. It's about knowing everything about a lot of things. And yes, that seems counterintuitive, but knowing everything, being someone who could be universal, that is the kind of mentality and the idea behind being multidisciplinary. Not about truly knowing everything, but seemingly like you know everything, which you're not a know-it-all, but it's essentially you're being a know-it-all in a good way, because you're actually contributing, you're not necessarily pushing it down people's throats. And hopefully I'm not being a know-it-all. I just want to share what I've learned and what I've talked about. Beyond that, the contemporary polymath learns from the ones of old and tries to be one in the modern era. As I mentioned in the beginning, this is the spark of an internet renaissance. And there's actually a PolyCASTS interview where we talked about that as well with Michael Barnathan. And so hopefully now you have taken some sort of step, either by watching this content or listening in, and are excelling at the arts and sciences in your life, whether it is your main job, a hobby, something you're good at, or something you enjoy. You'll find that ikigai in the middle. You'll find what that particular part of your life that's building up your pillars to be, and that could be spawned, that could be blossomed because you're a modern Renaissance person. So thank you for listening to PolyInnovator. This is the Omni-Content mini-series, the Multidisciplinary Spectrum. Check out the rest of the videos. Bye.